In this example, we're going to walk through the convert temp program line by line so we can see how execution transfers from one function to another. Here is the main function. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a breakpoint in our code here. A breakpoint is something for the compiler, so if we choose to run our program in what's called debug mode, it will know where to pause the program so that we can examine variables and other things about the program. By clicking here in this gray bar next to the code, I'm going to place a breakpoint here, right here at the CN. Now in order to run my program in this mode, I'm going to go into the debug menu and choose debug. This launches the program and executes each line of code starting at the first one in main down to the place where we have the breakpoint. At this point, the program is paused. The line beginning with the word CN has not yet executed. If I look at our output window, I see the result of the cout statement, specifically the user prompt enter a reading in Fahrenheit degrees. The two variables fartemp and celltemp have been created. If I let my mouse linger over the variable name, it will show you the variable in the right-hand window here, along with its present value at this point in time while the program is paused. Both of these variables have 0 because I haven't entered any data yet. If I tell dev C++ to execute this line of code beginning with CN, it's going to wait for me to type in a value. In this case, I'll enter in 98.6 and hit enter. At this point, the next line of code to be executed is highlighted in blue, which is the function call. At this point, we're going to call the function far to Celsius. We're going to give it the value contained in the variable fartemp, which, if we look over here on the left, has approximately 98.6. So the value 98.6 is going to be passed as an argument to the function. Whatever value the function produces or returns will ultimately be placed into this variable celltemp. So let's step in. At this point, execution of the code is going to jump to the function far to Celsius. And the lines of code within this function will execute one at a time from the top down, at which point control will transfer back to main. The first line of code is to create the variable Celsius and initialize it with 0.0. The next line of code is going to convert our 98.6 degrees, which is our parameter here, FAHR, to Celsius. Now the end result should be 37. And if we look over here in the left-hand pane, after executing that line of code, Celsius does indeed have the value 37. At this point, we are at the last statement in far to Celsius, the return statement. Here's where we specify the value that this function is ultimately going to return back to the calling function, in this case main. Celsius is a variable name. It currently contains the value 37. That's the value that's going to be returned back to main. So when we jump back to main, if we look at celltemp, it now has the value 37, which is the value returned by the function call far to Celsius. At this point, we're ready to do our couts. So the cout statement I have here will execute. And if I look at the output in my output window, it says you entered 98.6 Fahrenheit degrees. That is 37 degrees Celsius. So here we see the end result of this cout here in our output window. The last line of code here is the return 0. This is going to end the program and tell the operating system that everything went okay. Now execution begins with the first line of code in far to Celsius. It's a variable declaration, so if we say execute that line of code, Celsius has the value 0, which is our initial value, and it moves on to the next line of code, which is the mathematical formula for doing our conversion. If we execute that line of code, we notice over here on the left-hand side that Celsius now has the value 37, which is the value 98.6 degrees Fahrenheit converted to Celsius. The last step is our return statement here. This is going to return the value in this variable Celsius, which is 37, back to main. So control is going to transfer back to main, or what we call the calling function. So we jump back down to main at this point. Cell temp now has the value 37, which is the return value, or the value given by this function call. The last two lines here are cout statements, which are simply going to print out the values from the user input and the calculation. So I'll execute those two lines of code. The final statement is return 0. This will end the program, and the value 0 will be sent back to the operating system as an indicator that the program executed successfully.